everyone, and welcome to another Top Tip Tuesday video from my studio, the Pottery Corner, down on the south coast of England near Chichester. Today we are going to have a demonstration of how to use silicone moulds and Bisque Sprigs. So I use a combination of silicone moulds and bisque sprigs that I've made myself in my own work. So in terms of using it on your work, I've got out some examples for you just so that you can have a little look. So this is a thrown bowl that I have embellished with oak leaves and acorns all the way round the rim, and that design was made by making homemade sprigs. So this one obviously is the oak leaves, which I have just taken oak leaves off of a tree and pressed them in to the clay and sort of pressed them in quite firmly so that I've got a reasonable depth here. If they're very, very shallow, you won't get a good impression, but if you press them in, you get the shape. And then also obviously the acorns, I've just done a couple of sprigs and pushed the acorns in, and you get the nice texture from the acorn caps as well, so you get all the texture. And then I've just bisque fired these sprigs, and you can use them over and over again, and when they're actually fired and put together in a pattern, they look really good. So that's one way of using my homemade sprigs. I also do seashells, and this one is just completely covered in different types of seashells so that I can use whichever one I want to use at a particular time. I also, this is probably one of my most used sprigs. This is made from a pearl necklace or a beaded necklace or something like that. You can either use your grandmother's or go to the pound store or raid your mum's wardrobe and see what she's got. But this particular sprig makes these bobbles on these are structural poppy heads that go in the garden. And I've used this pearl necklace sprig on here and also on the top. And that one we use a lot in the studio, so that one's a really good one. I do buy commercially made silicone moulds. They are used very frequently in cake making. So these pink latex molds, they're not always pink, they come in obviously various shapes and sizes and are used for cake decorating, and they are really very useful. This one is for bunting and it has letters on it, so obviously you can then personalise anything. And this isn't yet glaze fired, but I thought I would show you that I've used it on this bowl. This is a dog bowl that I've personalised. So, you know, using the bunting to get the letters out, which is really very useful if you wanted to make something for a person, either pop it on a mug or on a plate or whatever. So that's really useful, and that was probably £2 or £3 online. So not expensive. This is another one of my favourites. This is a little bumblebee. So again, it's just a silicone mould, but the detail on the bumblebee is really very nice. So I was going to show you how I use some of these. So this one I use for handles on my mugs. So this mug, for instance, you can see this flower style run here has been put onto a handle. So I thought I would show you how I do that. So I have just rolled out some very simple coils. They're nothing special, but I've just rolled them out for demonstration purposes. When I'm using silicone mould, I use talcum powder. You can use cornstarch, but I put talcum powder actually into the mould and just, you know, make sure that it's kind of covered all the bits, because otherwise you'll never get it out. And then I take a tapered coil if I'm using it for a handle. And then I just press lightly, firmly but lightly, the coil along the length of the texture there. And then I just smooth the coil where I've put my fingerprints all over it, just smooth the coil out. And then if you lift up, you can see, I mean it is covered in talcum powder, but you can see that the texture is on the coil. So if I do that again, a little bit more talcum powder. If you don't use the talc, it's very difficult to get them out. So when I'm using coils for handles, I just place the whole thing in rather than trying to. And you can obviously take more time to do this than I'm doing for demonstration. So there you are. As you see, it's got powder on it. And if I could find my brush, I just brush the talc off, you can actually see the texture on there. And then obviously I would clean that up, and then that pops onto a mug for a nice bit of texture on your handles. So that's that one. This one I bought some time ago, and you'll have seen it, I'm sure, online because they use it a lot in cake decorating. But I have used this particular cable knit here for the handle on this mug. So you can see how versatile these things can be, that actually you can just press your clay into the mould and then it will make a handle for you with all that detail on it. So they're really very nice. And if I show you how I would do that, again, starting with the talcum powder, which is probably the most important thing. And then I would use, a piece of clay, it doesn't have to be a coil. And then I press it right into the texture as hard as I can, right the way down and all the way along. And this is where some people go wrong. They leave the excess and cut round the mould, the texture when it comes out of the mould. What I do is at this stage, when the texture is pressed hard into there, is I scrape with a knife, or you could scrape with a metal kidney or similar. I scrape the excess off of the mould. I'll just do that quickly so you can see what I mean. So I'm taking away all of the clay that is standing proud of the piece of texture that I'm using. And I've got it all off, I shall show you. Take a little bit of time because it will help you at the end not having to clean it up at all on the edges. So it is good to just take a little bit of time to make sure that you've got it right the way down onto the mould. I'm quite happy with that. Okay, so that's what that now looks like. So it's been pressed into the texture and I've taken all of that excess clay off of there. If I was attaching this to a slab, the easiest way to do that is to do it straight from the mould. So instead of taking that out of the mould and then scratching it to attach it, I'm going to scratch it whilst it's in the mould so that I'm getting it ready to attach, like so. So that's now scratched. And if it was a little decal, I would slip it and pop it straight out. And in fact, I'm just going to demonstrate that. It might not work quite so well on a big piece like this. So then you've slipped it, you've scratched it, you scratch your slab. Don't slip your slab, which is I was just about to do, because of course normally we would do that. But if you have one side that's slipped, if I then press that out onto the slab, if I do it this end, because you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So you can see that that has actually stuck to the slab without me having to do anything to it. It's just come clean out of the mould. It's already slipped and attached. So when I'm touching that, I'm not pushing out all that lovely texture that I've just used from the mould. Okay, so that's simply attached to the slab like so. Obviously it's covered in talc. The talc burns off, don't worry about it. Now at this point, you haven't got any excess clay around the outside because we took it all off when we were preparing the mould. I just take a paintbrush, just a simple paintbrush, and I just go round the join on the slab with a paintbrush to take away any slip that might have oozed out from joining that on. That doesn't take more than a few seconds just to clean up that join, and then I haven't had to put my hands on this texture and press it. So, you know, it's as good as it was when it came out of the mould because it's not had to be pushed by hand because we pushed it from the top on the mould. So it's a really easy way of using these moulds. And again, things like this leaf, which the cheese plant leaf, which are really very in at the moment. And again, very easy to use these moulds. Just get a piece of spare clay. Doesn't have to be anything special. And then I'm just going to press that out a little bit just so that it's not so difficult to pop it into the leaf. And then pop it onto the leaf, and again, push, 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 push. Take away the excess. That's too much on there. I'm just doing the big leaf just for example. And then I'm going to take my knife and just scrape away. And of course, because these are silicone moulds, they're very difficult to damage and they wash great. The only thing is that you do need to use the talcum powder, because if you don't, then you'll be peeling it out. And you can see that that's just come out of there. Well, I am going to almost use the clay like icing. So I'm just going to squish that back into that hole that's appeared. So don't worry if you do pull a bit of clay out that you really didn't want to pull out, because you can just smush it back in again with the knife like that. And obviously if you started with a slightly smaller piece of clay, you wouldn't be rubbing the excess off quite as much as I am having to do. So I'm just going to take that down again a little bit further. It's not quite flat on that mould, but we're nearly there. There we are. Okay, so that you can see I've taken it back down. If I had a bit more time, I'd tidy that up a bit more. So again, same process. Scratch the back of the article you want to attach. Give it a really good score. Score your slab that it's going onto. Get your slip, put your slip on the back of the item you're joining, like so. Give it a good slip, don't ever be too shy with it. It is your gluing agent, so plenty of it. And then I'm literally just going to pop that onto that scored surface. Again, exactly the same way. I'm just going to apply the pressure to the top of the mould. So I want to make sure that that slip is attached to the slab. And then when I lift up, again, peel the mould back, and then your item is stuck to the slab without you having to put your fingers on it. And again, there you are, paintbrush, just pop the paintbrush round and that just takes away that excess slip. So that decal has not been touched, so there's no fingerprints on it, and it's attached securely to the slab because we pressed the mould from the top. So that's how I use my sprigs and silicone moulds. And as I say, it does mean if you take the excess clay off of the mould before you turn it over, there's nothing to cut away, so it leaves a nice clean edge. So that's the way that I do it. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, please press the subscribe button below. There's Top Tip Tuesday videos coming out every week. If there's something that you'd particularly like me to demonstrate, then do put it in the comments. I'm quite happy to see whether it's something that I can show you. And you know, everybody likes to extend their knowledge of how other people do it, and sometimes it takes the smallest of tips to make a big difference to your working practice. So yeah, subscribe and hit the bell because it will tell you when there's a new video out. Have a look at the website, which is www.thepotterycorner.co.uk, Instagram the.pottery.corner. There are courses going on all the time, so there are, you know, various courses advertised on the website. So if you're local to Chichester, do have a look, and if you'd like to come along and join us, I'd like to see you. So that's all for now. So I'll see you next week on the next Top Tip Tuesday video, and I hope that that's been useful for you. Do let me know. Thanks very much. Bye bye.